And welcome back, everybody. You probably noticed that I'm decked out in original elephant wear from the locker room again tonight. The locker room, located on the University Strip, has been in business since 1964. That's 46 years. What does that mean? Well, it means that they are quality and they have a lot of repeat business. And now they're the home of the original elephant wear, which has taken Tuscaloosa and the state of Alabama by storm. Matter of fact, one of our camera guys, JD, I see him decked out in original elephant wear all the time. I see people all over the University of Alabama campus wearing it. You know where they get it? They get it at the locker room. Drop by anytime, Monday through Saturday. See Alex Gatewood and the good folks rushing the people. They'll take care of you. They'll size you up and get you fit. Or if you don't have time but you're interested in their inventory, just look them up on the internet. Check Google search the Locker Room Tuscaloosa and you can find out what they have got, and it is all very good stuff. Okay, time to take some phone calls now. Rodney Orr is already on the phone with us, and let's talk with Vic in Bessemer, who also is going to join us on the phone. Vic, what's going on with you, my friend?
Hey, man, how y'all doing tonight?
Doing well, Vic.
All right, my question was, I saw earlier where you was talking about Alabama running the table, but with those last 4 games, if we run the table straight out, what's the chances of us playing for the national championship again? And I hang up and listen.
Thanks, Vic. Well, I think they're very good, and I'll tell you why. You know, obviously there's some unknowns out there. First of all, we don't know how many teams are going to be unbeaten by the end of the season. But if Alabama wins these 4 games, that would include victories, of course, over LSU, Mississippi State, both ranked, and then if Auburn would remain unbeaten, that would be the #1 ranked BCS team at the end of the season, and of course a victory over Georgia State in there as well. That would get them to 11-1. Then if you go to Atlanta and win the SEC championship, that's 12-1. You're the defending national champions. You would have gone, let's see, 23-1 in the SEC during the regular season the last 3 years. You would have started the season at #1. I think it'd be very, very difficult to keep Alabama under that scenario out of the national championship. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, but if it did happen and Alabama were left out under that scenario, I guarantee you, you would have a lot of catcalls around the country in regards to the BCS. Rodney, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think a 12-1 Alabama team, SEC champions again, would be be very difficult to keep out of that BCS game.
Well, I think you summed it up pretty well, and also consider the possibility that if Alabama does do what you said, and the team they beat in the SEC championship game is South Carolina, then they've avenged their only loss of the season. So basically, they've beaten everybody on their schedule this year, and maybe that would play somewhat into it. I don't know, but certainly would be some sort of an argument for Alabama to be in the game if that were to happen. But I'm like you, Gary, and of course I'm a little bit biased too. But I think that if the Alabama wins out and beats Auburn, especially if Auburn's undefeated at that time, and then goes on to win the SEC championship game, then it's going to be very difficult to keep Alabama out of the BCS game.
Of course, Rodney and Vic, as we've already talked about, the most important thing, though, is just for Alabama to keep winning, because it can change very, very quickly. You know, we see teams every week get beat.
A lot of people, Gary, already talking about the Auburn game, and so far, obviously Nick Saban's not concentrating on that game, but, you've got to take care of the business at hand, which is LSU, in 2 weeks. And then after that, there's Mississippi State, a team that's playing really, really well. So a win over Mississippi State right now is much more impressive than it would have been in early September.
No doubt about it. Okay, let's stay with our callers and go to Jasper and talk with John. John, welcome into TITV.
Thank you, sir. I think our offense will match up with LSU defense pretty good, and I think our defense should do their job against LSU. And I still believe that we'll beat Auburn when it comes to Tuscaloosa.
All right, John. Yeah, thanks for your comments. So, Rodney, let's talk about that matchup-wise. Alabama against LSU. You've got LSU with a very stout defense. I know they got torched at Auburn, but that's happened to a lot of people. But Alabama's offense trying to match up against that very stingy LSU defense.
Well, and again, based on what Alabama does, Alabama's going to obviously line up and run the football, and LSU's been strong stopping the run up until last week. In the Auburn game, they've done a great job, but I think that with Alabama's diversity on offense, if they can continue to build on that second half against Tennessee, LSU will have a difficult time stopping Alabama. And clearly, when you look on the other side of the ball, LSU has struggled offensively mightily this year, and I think that matchup is certainly favorable to Alabama as well.
All right, let's take one more phone call before we have to go to a break. Ken is in Goodwater. Ken, I know the water's good, huh?
Yes, sir.
Hey, what's on your mind?
I was wondering what you thought about the offensive line this year. Do you think they're as good as they were last year? They seem like they pass block a little better, but they don't seem to be opening up the holes for the running game.
Right, Ken. I think this. I think when you lose a guy like Mike Johnson, you lose an awfully good player. I mean, he was an All-American. He had started for 3 years. He made a lot of calls on the offensive line. Really good player. Now, to answer your question, and again, I'll let Ronnie give his opinion, I think the offensive line is very good. I think Warmack has stepped in there at left guard. He's a bull. DJ Fluker was playing terrific at right tackle. McCullough has come in for him since he's been injured and played well. They've given up some sacks, but I don't know how many of those were their fault as an offensive line. I think they've performed maybe not quite to the level of last year's offensive line, but Ronnie, they've been pretty solid.
Yeah, it seems to be really close. I think, in terms of comparison to last year, obviously this time last year I think Alabama's offensive line had given up 8 sacks and given up like 22 this year, but I'm with you, Gary. A lot of those sacks were not on the offensive line, in my opinion, and so I think that maybe they shouldn't be credited with those. But I don't think there's been necessarily a lot of difference in the line from this year and last year, as much as it is. A lot of teams have really loaded up the box, and Alabama had some trouble, throwing the ball down the field, backing people up.
All right, Ronnie, 205-348-9882 is the number if you want to get through. We'll take more phone calls when we come back to Tighter Insider TV. Stay with us. Right back to the phone. Denny in Shoal Creek is with us. Denny, go ahead. You're on TITV.
Yes, sir. I was going to tell you real quick, we really enjoy y'all's show.
Thank you.
My question is it legal for you to interview recruits, potential recruits? We enjoy that part of your show.
Thank you, Denny. It is. There is some there is some criteria that we have to go by, and we'll try to do some more interviews in terms of recruits. I know, Rodney, you do interviews all the time for your site. So, Denny, if you're not a member of TighterInsider.com, I encourage you to join. But we do some interviews, and I know, Rodney, you're doing them all the time for your site.
Yeah, and the difficult thing is for people like Denny who like to hear those interviews on Tighter Insider TV. So, frankly, a lot of some kids don't like to come on, live TV, so that does kind of make it difficult.
All right, but we will keep that in mind, Denny, and as we get closer to signing day, we'll try to get some more interviews for you in terms of recruits. All right, we got to take a timeout, pay some bills, and we'll be back right after this. Alabama doesn't play on Saturday, but there will still be a Crimson Tide kickoff presented by AT&T and Alpha Insurance Saturday morning at 8 a.m. on WVUA-TV. John Huddleston will join me. We'll take a look back at Alabama's first 8 games of the season. We'll have special live interviews, guests, feature stories, and more. Crimson Tide kickoff this Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And because there is no game, that means there's no predictions for Rodney and I. But, Rodney, I want to bring you back in because there is some news today regarding an Alabama football commitment. LaMichael Fanning, the big lineman who had started out this year at Auburn High School, transferred over to, I think it's Harris County in Georgia, quit his high school team today. My question is, do you think that affects his recruitment by Alabama in any way?
Well, and again, I don't have the answer to that question yet or right now, so it'd be difficult for me to comment on that.
And what do you think about him as a player, though? Is he having a pretty good year?
Yeah, he was having a good year. Actually, I had spoken to the coach and the athletic director over there a couple of weeks ago, and they were really pleased with what he was doing. He was playing on both sides of the ball, was playing defensive end and also playing tight end, and had made a significant contribution on both sides of the ball this year. And, again, was having a great year. And, LaMichael's just kind of had a tough go of it. You mentioned that he transferred from Auburn High School to Harris County High School over there in Hamilton, Georgia. Actually, he had started at Harris County, went to Hogansville, Callaway, Georgia, then to Auburn, now back to Harris County. So, and again, I know that he was working hard to get academically qualified so he could be at Alabama next fall. So
right, Rodney,
it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, we'll keep an update. We'll keep tabs on LaMichael Fanning for you, and also want to thank you for joining us. I know you're in Birmingham. Your daughter Natalie had back surgery. We wish her the best, Rodney, and hope she gets well soon. And don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, there's only one place you can go to watch it. That's WVUATV.com. We'll have it posted for you later this evening. We will also have a replay tonight at 10:35. I want to thank Buddy's Ribbon Steak in Northport, one of our great supporters. I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. See you next week.